Hi divers, Ben here again. In this video, I show you what kind of bolt snaps you're gonna need, where you tie it and how you tie it. This is a complete series on how to be best prepared for your GUE Fundamentals course, which is, by the way, the best option to dramatically increase your scuba diving skills. So consider subscribing and never miss a video again. In the last video, I explained what kind of scuba cylinders are advisable for a GUE Fundamentals class and how to configure your regulators for either a single or a double tank configuration. If you haven't checked out the video yet, you can find the link in the description below or use the info card up there. After you configure the regulators correctly, it is important to tie two bolt snaps to your hoses. One to the SPG high pressure hose and one to the primary regulator long hose. The purpose of these bolt snaps is, apparently, to clip off your primary regulator and your SPG, because for a streamlined setup, we don't want the SPG or the regulator hanging and dangling around, creating the risk of entanglement or just destroying these equipment parts. When it comes to the material the bolt snaps are made of, you should make sure that they are made from seawater resistant stainless steel. Don't go for brass or non-stainless steel, since it will start to corrode very soon, at least if you use it in the sea. So where do you want to fix the bolt snap on your hoses? The position on the long hose should be around one hand away from the actual regulator, as you can see here. This position makes it easy to grab and clip off the regulator easily if needed. If it's too far up, the regulator is hanging too low when clipped off. When it's too close to the second stage, it's hard to grab it and clip it off because the bolt snap is always in the way. So one hand away from the regulator is the optimal position. On the high pressure hose, for most divers it's advisable that the bolt snap sits close to the SPG. Given the correct length of the hose, I talked about that in the regulator video. If it's too far up, you can clip it off, or if the hose is too long, it creates a loop on your side, increasing the risk of entanglement, and we don't want that. A general advice on the size would be as small as possible and as big as necessary. Very often students come to classes using ridiculously large bolt snaps. The argument to use giant bolt snaps is always that they are easier to grab and handle, especially when using thick gloves or dry gloves. Still, in my opinion, this is an equipment solution for a skill problem. Sure, extremely tiny bolt snaps are hard to handle, but too large ones are really heavy. Especially on the regulator, you will really feel the additional weight on long dives. If you clip the regulator off, a very large bolt snap won't keep the regulator close enough to the body, increasing a risk of entanglement. A very large bolt snap on the SPG increases the risk of clipping additional equipment like stages or deco tanks to the SPG bolt snap instead of the hip D-ring. On my usual setup, the bolt snap on the SPG is around 90 mm of length, and I wouldn't choose a larger one here. The one on the regulator is around 80 mm. Sometimes people will use slightly smaller ones, but this is okay for my hands, but it's the biggest one I would use on the regulator. So how do you fix the bolt snap to your hose? there are different methods to fix it to the hose. I personally don't recommend zip ties and O-rings, but solely Caveline. Zip ties are really hard to break if you need to remove the bowl snap during a dive. Rubber O-rings are very easy to break unintentionally on a dive, what we don't want either. So the best solution, in my opinion, is just standard Caveline. You can create a very stable connection with it, and it can be broken away or cut away if needed. And that's exactly what we want. Usually, you always have some Caveline left because most spools you need to set in SMB have too much Caveline on them. And you need to cut that away after the first use anyway. If you don't have some Caveline left, you can easily buy some in a do-it-yourself store or in a dive shop. I dropped some links in the description so you can check out appropriate line. To fix the bolt snap, you're gonna need the regulator apparently, the bolt snap, and a piece of Caveline. 20 to 30 centimeters are enough. A knife or scissors and a lighter. So we lay out the hose and the Caveline so that the Caveline is behind the hose. And we feed the Caveline through the loop of the bolt snap. Now we take this end and feed it 3 times through the loop of the bolt snap. Each time around the hose. 1, 2, and 3. Now we decide for the perfect position on the hose. One hand away from the second stage. So it should be around here. So let's move all this to the correct position, and I think it should be around here. Now I flip the bowl snap to the other side, and tie a reef knot on this side. I check the position, still right, and now I can get some tension on the line. Now I flip the bolt snap to the other side and I create a knot on this side. Remember, you have to do it right over left and left over right. Otherwise, it's just a granny knot and that will come loose after a while. So right over left. And left over right. Now we tighten everything. That's a good stable connection. Last I cut away the ends by, let's say, around a ½ centimeter with the scissors or the knife. Now I melt the ends towards the knot. Make sure not to set your hose on fire while doing that. When it's slightly burning, so this is a very strong non-sliding connection, which is very important, that will last for years. If you have the impression that the line is about to break away due to abrasion over the years, you can just easily replace it before it breaks accidentally on the dive. If you want to break it deliberately, the easiest is to use a knife to cut away the Caveline. Done! You probably fixed the bolt snap to the regulator long hose. Now you can repeat this for the SPG. Very often people ask me where they should buy the bowl snaps from. I dropped some links to bowl snaps in the description. If you want to know if it's advisable to buy a cheap double ender from China or better an expensive one from a local dive shop, you can check out my video about the double ender test. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell and never miss valuable content again. See you there.